Super Rugby Saturday games. There's a whole bunch of them. There's 6 games on. We're about to get a better feeling for where a lot of these teams are at. Some of last year's poor performers continued on their sorry ways, others not so much. And likewise, some of the teams expected to do a bit better last week didn't. So we'll see if last week was a one-off, a bit of teething problems. Perhaps some of that rust is going to be gone. Time will tell. We will start with the first one. It is the Sunwolves hosting the Waratahs, this time in Japan. So if you're a Sunwolves fan, you got to be thinking we're back to our proper home now. In terms of our lineup, it's perhaps a slightly stronger looking one. There's been a few changes, but still some familiar faces. How are they going to go? Hopefully better than last week, because last week really wasn't the best. I didn't get to see their game in full. It was on pretty late over here in New Zealand, but it looked like from like the 10th or 20th minute that the Sharks really just got on top, and from what you guys told me in the comments, really were able to dominate with their forwards. So it's going to be a tough ask for them, but they need to lift their game. And it's an Aussie conference team coming to town. The Waratahs looked okay last week, but not all that sharp. Neither them nor the Canes looked all that hot. So the Waratahs will be looking to make a statement. This second game of the season is a bit rich to say must win. But man, if you want to be getting anywhere in this comp, you got to be winning games like this. If you're a Waratahs, coach or player, because I don't want to say it's an easy game, but it's not the Crusaders in Christchurch, it's the Sunwolves in Japan. So, coming off the back of a loss, they need to front up. In terms of lineups, I mean, you've got that same front row for the Sunwolves of Yamashita, Brigvadze, and Miller. Hopefully they can up their game this week as well. That Sharks pack is pretty tough looking, so perhaps we'll see that. You've still got Hayden Parker at 10, Shigenos at 9, Shane Gates, who from memory looked alright last week. From what limited amount I saw, he's in at 13. Jason Emery's at 15. So there's some talented players there. But then, man, you still got the Waratahs with the likes of Israel Folau. This week it's Beale and Carmichael Hunt, so they've switched it up a little bit there. Curtis Rona's on the left wing, Alex Newsom's on the right wing. It's a pretty good looking back line. It's still Foley at 10 with Gordon at 9, so Gordon's the preferred option there. I don't think Phipps is available yet. Ned Hannigan's still on the blind side. Kepu, Fitzpatrick and Johnson Holmes in the front row. Perhaps not as able to boss around as the Sharks 4-pack, but I guess we will see. Adam Ashley Cooper's kind of bracketed him with Cam Clark on the bench. So we'll see which one of them gets a run. But Waratahs by 21 is what the bookies are saying. So they're saying, based on last week's performance, the Tars should be going in and really doing a job on the Sunwolves. If you're a Waratahs fan, you would expect that. If you're a Sunwolves fan, let's hope for more. The next game is the Crusaders hosting the Hurricanes, and just on paper, that looks to be, I just realized these are run the wrong way, it looks to be one of the best games of the week, because these are two real powerhouse teams in that New Zealand conference. But again, neither side looked that flash last week. It's hard to tell with that Crusaders performance over the Blues whether the Blues are better or whether the Crusaders just weren't up to their normal standards. For the Hurricanes, there was definitely rust. Man, I got birds and dogs going all over the place. It's raining for the first time in Auckland in a long time. But yeah, on paper, this one should be a really good game because, as I said, these two teams are both pretty strong. Nobody's beaten the Crusaders down at Christchurch for a very long time. So it's a tough ask for the Hurricanes, and they'll be hoping for fine weather, because when they played them last year in the wet, it didn't go that well for them. It didn't seem to fit their game plan. But hey, new coach, a few new players this year, so we will see. Man, the Crusaders coach has signed on for another couple of years. That's ominous. Scott Robertson's going to be in Christchurch for a wee bit longer. I was kind of hoping he would end his contract and go somewhere else so that the Crusaders might have a lacking of stability, but it's not going to happen. They're going to be good for a very long time. Havili is at fullback. It's Crotty and Goodhue in the midfield. George Bridge is still there. Moa, Bryn Hall, Fetu Douglas at number 8. Matt Todd still captains from 7. Taufua Strange, Scott Barrett, Franks, Makaleo, Joe Moody. Yeah, man. It's a proper All Blacks team, this Crusaders lineup. For the Hurricanes, though, there's no lacking of talent. I mean, you got Geordie Barrett, Matt Proctor and Vince Aso in the midfield. Ben Lamb's there. Fletcher Smith has got a big ask running that 10 jersey. There was a bit of talk about Beauden Barrett coming back for this one, but it's a bit early for him to be back because he's still not. I think he's only been training like a week, so yeah, it was probably a bit of a stretch. It's the forwards though that they're really going to have to front up. You got Chris Eves, Dane Coles, and Jeff Tumunga Allen in that front row. They're going to have to step up, and then the second row, you've got Blackwell and Liam Mitchell. They've got a long night ahead of them, but hey man, you never know. I'll back the Canes to lift, but whether they can lift to beat the Crusaders in Christchurch could well be a bridge too far. I guess we will see. The bookies have got the Crusaders by 10, so pretty comfortable favourites, despite the fact that the Canes are a pretty strong team. The next one is the Chiefs travelling across the ditch to go play the Brumbies. Both teams had a loss last week, so it is time to get the season underway for both. Both of them, it was a home loss, so added a bit more salt to that wound. And for both of them, it was a conference rival that got that win over them. So both had a pretty poor start to the season in that way, but neither was that far off the pace. You'd probably say the Chiefs are in a slightly better position than the Brumbies, but man, now it's a fire engine. I got everything tonight. But yeah, the Brumbies at the end of last season looked pretty good, but that didn't seem apparent last week. The Chiefs, I think you could tell they were missing some of their guys, but Damien McKenzie is back for this one. I think he'll make a difference. That's not to say that, you know, they absolutely rely on him. And actually, Auburn Ledger did all right filling in those shoes, but I still think D-Mac is going to add something else. Four-pack, Aiden Ross, Nathan Harris, Nepal Alala, Brody Retallick, Michael Allardyce if he stops giving away penalties. Mitch Brown, Lachlan Boshier, Tyler Ardron, who also had a very good game. That's a nice lineup. Brumbies is Slipper, Fainga, Alala Rory Arnold, Sam Carter, Valtini, Cusack, and Lachlan McCaffrey. So no Pocock is probably the key loss there if you're a Brumbies fan. I mean, he's going to be a loss to any team he plays for. He's one of the best players in the world, so that doesn't do their chances any favours. Pete Samu is still on the bench, which I'm pretty disappointed about because I thought he added something last week when he came on, but he still doesn't get a start. It's Leliafano at 10, Joe Powell's at 9. It leaves Wharenui Haiwera on the bench. For Chiefs, it's D-Mac at 10, like I said. Te Toiroa Tuhuriarangi gets the nod at 9 because I believe Weber's out. So, yeah, Sean Stevenson at fullback, Tamua Manu, ALB at 12. He was a really good performer last week. So, if I was picking my Super Brew, I'd be looking at the Chiefs for this one. I mean, Aussie teams have not had the best run against Kiwi teams, but the Brumbies and Canberra are not easy, but still, bookies have got the Chiefs by 7. So, taking that one down, not all that comfortably, but it's interesting that there's a bigger margin between the Crusaders and the Hurricanes than there is between the Chiefs and the Brumbies. Perhaps that's a endorsement of Aussie Rugby's progress last year. Not so much at Wallaby level, but at Super Rugby level, they definitely performed a wee bit better. But it could just be the fact that the Crusaders are really tough at home. The next one, the Crusaders. No, it's the Sharks against the Blues. Sharks, man, they are the number 2 team in the comp right now after that big win over the Sunwolves. They're at home to the Blues, but both teams will be a little bit jet-lagged, I suppose, because the Blues coming over from Auckland and the Sharks travelling back from Singapore. So there's a chance that some of these guys aren't going to be all that fresh, but hey, it's early in the season, so they really should be up for this one. It's a better test of where the Sharks are at, because they proved to be a pretty slick and dominating outfit last week. But the Sunwolves seemed a bit disjointed. I mean, a lot of that's what the Sharks put on them, but still, the Blues are going to be a different prospect, despite the fact that it's the Blues. It's the worst of the New Zealand teams, but hey, they only lost to the Crusaders by 2 points last week, so it's possible they've made a step forward. I guess we will see. In terms of the playing rosters, it's pretty familiar for both. I mean, it's still the Beast, Akavanda Murva, Connie Oosthuizen in that front row, which is very nice. Andrews and Borta in the second row of Jacques Vermeulen, Tyler Paul, and Dan Dupria. Yeah, that's a fair few Springboks in that lineup for the Blues. It's Tuina Koafe, James Parsons, and Tuanga Fasi. So interesting, they're going with their bigger guns this week. Tuanga Fasi and Tuina Koafe came off the bench last week and did make an impact. This week they're going to have to do it from the start. In terms of the backs, it's actually a wee bit interesting because you got Kuan Bosch, who's on the bench, Jeremy Ward's on the bench, but Esterhazen and continue at 12 and 13. Was impressive last week from what I saw of him. Pimpian and Kossi both got tries from memory last week. Fussy on the bench at 15. Very nice. And Rob Dupria. I went to this corresponding fixture last season when the Sharks came to New Zealand, and he hammered the Blues with that boot of his. So Blues will be having a nightmare of that guy's whatever size shoe he wears boot, because yeah, he was putting in a very good performance. But I mean, we'll be looking for guys like Dalton Papali'i, Akira Ioane for Blues fans to be stepping up, putting in a challenge on some of these Springbok guys who are perhaps bigger names in terms of just where rugby is at. Jonathan Ruru and Oteri Black are 9 and 10. Rico Ioane, who wasn't all that busy last week against the Crusaders, he's on the left wing. Sonny Bill and TJ Whaiane are in the midfield, so that means Ma'anonu not in the squad for this one. Caleb Clark and Malani Nanai at 14 and 15. Bookies have actually got this one at evens. That's New Zealand bookies. I wouldn't be surprised if the South African bookies have got the Sharks as a wee favourite. But yeah, it really is still too early to tell if the Blues have taken a step forward and if the Sharks are a real deal. We'll soon find out. The next one is the Stormers hosting the Lions. The Stormers are dead last. The 15th team in the competition after getting an absolute walloping last week from the Bulls. It was away from home, and the Stormers are bad away from home. They proved that last year. They haven't fixed it one game in. But at Newlands, they were okay. I think they lost a couple of games at Newlands, but for the most part, they were pretty competitive. And some teams who were fancied over them last season went to Newlands and lost. So they'll definitely be looking to take a step up. They're still based in South Africa. They've had to travel back to Cape Town from Pretoria, but that's a lot shorter distance than the Lions have had to travel back from Argentina. So despite that result, the Stormers have got a couple of things kind of in their favour here. But man, that was a really good result from the Lions last week. Going to Argentina and getting a win, something they hadn't done before. So in terms of morale, they should really have their heads held high. It's interesting that the Stormers have made a few changes. So they've put Jean-Luc Duplessis in at 10, so that moves Damien Willemse back to 15. That was kind of, from what I read before the season, that was going to be the plan. But they went with Willemse at 10 last week. So yeah, SP Maria moves on to the wing. Or was he at wing last week? I think he might have been on the wing last week as well. Damien Delende and Ronell in the midfield. In the forwards, Vermaak and Bonambi Wukolo. Sio Khaleesi's in there. Peter Steph Tutoy, Sikambu Zanoche. Has enough Springboks to be competitive, to get a win, not to get beaten by 40 points. But then likewise, that Lions team is also full of some box. Dylan Smith, Malcolm Marks, and Kalu Sadi are in the front row, and their front row was very strong last week. They put in a very big effort, so they haven't lost that much in terms of their front row power with the changes in personnel over the off-season. Mana Skuman, who got a hat-trick last week. He's a little pocket dynamo, and we'll see if he's able to continue that on. Kwaka Smith is back for this one, so that's encouraging. Warren Whiteley's still there. Elton Yankees, Courtney Scossa, Forster, Mapo, Combrink, Kutsia. Stormers are going to have to up their game by a fair bit and hope the Lions are tired. I'm not writing the Stormers off. I know people aren't that impressed with Robbie Fleck and what he's been doing, and last week's performance doesn't give you that much kind of confidence. And then on the other end, with the Lions, you know, coach's name is just gone from my brain, but he's been spending time with Rusty Erasmus, and his coaching seems to have come along well, and he's doing a good job. Oh, what's his name? can picture him. Glasses. Swiss the brain. There it is. Where's my brain? It's been a long day at work, just in case you haven't noticed in this video. Last one is the Bulls. The very impressive Bulls, who are top of the table. And Unbiased Rugby sent me this Bulls flag. I've sent him a Blues flag in return. His still hasn't arrived, but this one arrived yesterday. I put it in the video yesterday as well. It's a good time to be a Bulls fan, so it's good that this Bulls flag is here with me as they sit top of the table. Traveling to Argentina to play the Jaguares. Jaguares were a wee bit disappointing last week. They didn't quite get their game going. They showed a bit of rust, but they're at home. It's their second game in a row at home. So they absolutely need to pick things up for this visit of the Bulls. And the Bulls hit the ground running. They were sharp. Some of their moves last week were spectacular. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing them do what they can do, because if the Bulls, I mean, it's one game, but if the Bulls are anywhere kind of even close to where they looked like they were last week, they could be a very fun team to watch in this 2019 season. Still some familiar names again from last week. You've still got Vivas, Crevi and Medrano in that Jaguares front row. It's still Petty and Lavanini in second row, Matera, Crema and Ortega Decio. So there's a little bit of change there. Bonija continues at 10. Cabelli's inside him. Bonija is not Sanchez, but I don't think he was kind of the reason for that that loss last week at all. Mojano and Del Guillo on the wings. That's a very, very good wing pairing. Tucolet. De La Fuente is still captain. Orlando is there. It's a team that's better than they showed last week, and if they click, they started slow last season as well, and it took them a while to click, but when they did, they had some really good results. Just look at their tour of Australia and New Zealand. They went unbeaten. So I don't know when they're going to click. Might not be week 2. This might actually be a good time for the Bulls to be playing them. For the Bulls, Kaboka, Brits and Nyakane. Brits, from what I saw of them last week, seem to have slotted into that number 2 jersey well for the Bulls. Jenkins and Diacha. Diacha was also very immense last week. Steenkamp, Liebenberg and Vermeulen. From what you guys have told me, because they didn't show much of Vermeulen in the highlights, but from what you guys have said, he was a bit of a monster last week and perhaps should have been in the team of the week. Papier and Pollard. Pollard controlled the game very well, kicked very well, so he's informed. Speckman had one heck of a debut for the Bulls. He's going to be on a lot of people's radar, and with the World Cup not that far away, South Africa's got a lot of wingers who look very dangerous. Odendale, Creel looked good. Kono Hendricks and Warwick Halant. I'm looking forward to this game. This game's on at a reasonable hour for me in New Zealand, so I'll definitely be able to see that one. There is Six Nations as well on this weekend, so it's going to be a very busy weekend of rugby. But yeah, forgot to mention, it's the Lions by 5 according to the bookies for that one. Evens, like I said, for that one, and also for this Jaguares Bulls match, it is at evens here in New Zealand with the bookies. So I suppose punters are not convinced by the Bulls' one performance, and the Jaguares, based on a bit of good form last season, are still getting a bit of credit. So we'll see if the travel is going to be a factor for them, but hey, they certainly look good, and we'll see if it can continue. You guys let me know your thoughts on these games. What are your predictions? How do you think these teams are going to go? Which one for you is your kind of must-watch of the week? And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.